Minutes before his wedding, a millionaire discovered a shocking secret that changed everything. Benjamin Carter stood at the entrance of his father's study, a cascade of golden light pouring through the tall windows onto his meticulously tailored suit. The laughter and warmth of family and friends echoed in the background, but the joy of the day slipped through his fingers like sand. He inhaled deeply, his breath wavering as he caught sight of an unassuming, dusty picture frame pushed into the shadows. Curiosity pulled him closer. As he leaned down to retrieve it, his heart pounded. The image inside revealed a younger version of his father, a modest smile on his face, an image that felt so out of place amid the luxury Ben had built since then. It was the handwritten note on the back that knocked the wind from his lungs. Words of sacrifice and struggle, detailing financial burdens that weighed heavily on his father's heart long before he ever produced a millionaire son. The realization hit hard, shattering the polished image Ben had held of his father. What else did he not know? The memories of his own easy childhood danced painfully in his mind, each a reminder of opportunities that came without understanding, blessings granted without acknowledgement of the cost. The veil of his success suddenly felt fragile. Questions twisted within him. Had he seen only what he wanted to see, or had he been blinded by expectation? Jessica, his fiancée, appeared at the doorway, her bright smile striking against the heavy clouds settling in Ben's heart. He wanted to share the slip of paper that now felt so heavy in his hand, but words betrayed him. Faced with a woman who believed in him without knowing this secret, he hesitated. Would this revelation change the way she looked at him? The weight of the moment threatened to collapse under the force of his conflicting emotions, and he struggled to steady himself. "Are you okay?" Her voice, soft yet insistent, felt like a lifeline. He shook his head, the corners of a perfect day starting to fray. That sense of failure, a fear of not measuring up to the man he had always sought to be, tugged at him fiercely. How could he profess eternal commitment when he felt so lost? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The fragile veneer of his financial prowess began to warp under the collapsing weight of expectation, revealing the raw truth. Benjamin's world was built upon stark contrasts that he never bothered to confront. His gaze darted once more to the photo, hearing the damning whispers of unseen sacrifices echoing through time. He imagined the dread of his father, quietly bearing burdens to provide a future filled with hopes unrealized. What was it all worth now? A knot twisted painfully in his gut. Friends who once applauded him suddenly became shadows, their cheers feeling hollow, their loyalties alien. Would they turn away, stop looking at him as an equal when they discovered the truth? He couldn't shake the thought he was standing on the brink of a cul-de-sac, a crossroads of privilege that posed greater challenges than he had ever anticipated. He inhaled sharply, the clock ticking incessantly. Would he walk down the aisle and embrace a life of pretense, cementing ties in a world built on wealth? Or would he risk it all, delve into the depths of his father's hidden truths, even if it threatened to unravel the very fabric of his existence? Each second resonated in his mind, amplifying the choices. One represented a superficial facade, while the other whispered of honor and connection. As sunlight streamed against the backdrop of his luxurious estate, the beauty of the day felt unbearable, standing in stark contrast to the chaos swirling in him. With each tick of the clock, he realized the most important question wasn't whether to say, "I do," but whether he could carry his father's legacy forward or succumb to the gilded emptiness of the life he'd created. Time slipped away, and the tension built within him, leaving everything hanging in the balance. Would he embrace the truth that could shatter his perfect facade, or cling to the illusion that had become his reality? Time slowed as Benjamin's thoughts raced, trapped between the intoxicating promise of a new life and the suffocating weight of his inheritance. Each tick of the clock mirrored his pulse, a relentless reminder of the commitments just moments away, and he felt himself spiraling deeper into an abyss of uncertainty. A decision loomed, one that could redefine not only his future, but also the essence of who he was. Jessica stepped closer, concern etching into her features. "Ben, what is going on? You're not yourself," she urged, her voice trembling with an urgency that broke through his haze. It was an anchor, and for a fleeting moment, he contemplated laying his burdens bare. Courage flickered within him, but the thought of vulnerability terrified him more than the prospect of an inevitable reckoning. He wrestled with conflicting impulses: share his revelation or shield her from the storm brewing inside. "It's nothing, just pre-wedding jitters." Lies unspooled weakly from his lips, each word further binding him to the charade. Jessica searched his eyes, seeking truth as her brows knit together. He recognized the sincerity in her gaze, a warm glow that ignited the yearning to connect deeply, to be vulnerable. Yet, the narrative he had cultivated was dense, fortified by pride and the expectations of society. It felt easier, at that moment, to uphold the facade, to wear his mask rather than unveil his fears. Suddenly, shame rushed through him. He had never truly understood the sacrifices his father had made for him, for this life. The photograph was a visceral representation of a hidden struggle he had swept beneath the luxurious rug of his achievements. Did he not owe it to his father, to himself, to break the chains of ignorance? As he stood tethered between past and future, clarity pierced through the uncertainty. He envisioned his father's face, a portrait of hard-fought resilience. That resignation, that quiet acceptance of struggle, spoke to him, urging him to confront the demons rather than allow them to fester in silence. "Jessica," he breathed, lowering his voice as he steadied his heartbeat. "I need to tell you something about my family, about my father." The words tumbled out, spilling secrets he had never dared to utter. He outlined his father's trials, the weight of unspoken truths that hung heavily in the air, both intimidating and liberating. Jessica's reaction was immediate, a flicker of shock instantaneously transformed into determination. "Ben, this doesn't change who you are. It's a part of your story, but it doesn't define the man you are today or the future we can build together." Her strength radiated, wrapping around him like a lifeline. His heart felt lighter, the burden of deception lifting slightly, but a new knot of anxiety emerged. Would his past, exposed for all to see, alter the trajectory of his life? He could sense the tremors of vulnerability shifting the ground beneath him. With newfound resolve, he collected himself, deliberating how to integrate this awareness into the life they would forge together. But even as they prepared to leave the study, doubt lingered at the edge of his mind. Would living authentically mean sacrificing the life he had sculpted, or paradoxically, would it refine it into something genuinely profound? As they stepped into the dazzling embrace of the wedding day, a tempest of emotions surged within him. Each footfall felt deliberate, as if he was walking toward not only his wedding, but also the potential unveiling of truth he craved. The ceremony would become a climax, not just of commitment, but of confronting what it meant to truly live without the masks he had worn. Yet, the looming question persisted. How would Jessica truly react when they faced the relatives, friends, and those who adored his polished image? Would they continue to embrace him, or would the revelation twist their perception, rendering him an outsider in his own life? As the doors to the gathering opened, ushering them into the throng of guests waiting to witness their vows, Benjamin Carter felt the weight of dual possibilities: a life liberated by transparency or buried under the weight of expectations. The moment beckoned, hanging in the balance, and he realized that every step forward was a step into the unknown and unsettling adventure where both love and truth converged. The time had come to face the music, but how would he conduct it? The grand hall was awash with laughter, the melodic sounds of celebration echoing against opulent chandeliers. Benjamin breathed in the intoxicating mix of scents. Exquisite floral arrangements mingled with the rich aroma of gourmet dishes. Yet amidst the festivity, his heart was heavy with mixed feelings of elation and trepidation. Here was a world crafted from dreams and expectations, yet it felt simultaneously alien to him. That he stood at the threshold, hands clammy, mind racing with the cascade of words he had shared moments before with Jessica. It was as if he had opened a doorway to a vast chasm, revealing shadows of doubt that loomed larger than ever. Did truth truly set one free, or did it, instead, bind with chains of its own? "Ben, Jessica called, her voice slicing through the bustling chaos. She was a vision in lace and silk, radiant in her happiness, oblivious to the turmoil thrumming within him. The sight of her wove a tapestry of love and fear admiration for the woman who stood steadfastly by him, battling his internal demons even as she prepared to join him in a union meant to flourish. He stepped forward, melding into the unfolding scene, yet felt like an outsider peering through a glass wall, eager and afraid. Each face in the assembling crowd was a reflection of expectations, both real and perceived. Family members filled with pride, friends eager for a celebration, unaware of the internal tempest brewing within the groom. Their gaze fixated on the veneer of a perfect story. Little did they know of the cracked foundation beneath. As the officiant beckoned him forward, a sudden pulse of resolve surged in Benjamin's chest. He realized the depth of responsibility that accompanied his decision to share his father's struggles. He had crossed the threshold of vulnerability, and it was time to embrace it fully, not just in the intimate shadows of a private moment, but under the glaring lights of his wedding. With a renewed focus, he took Jessica's hand, feeling warmth and steadiness, fueling the flickering flame of his courage. No more running, he whispered to himself, echoing the resolve that had sparked in the study. It was a silent vow to himself, a commitment to not only be present in this union, but to be genuine in every facet of his existence moving forward. As they turned to face their friends and family, Benjamin's voice trembled, a blend of fear and determination burgeoning within him. "I have something to share," he began but faltered momentarily, taking in the expectant faces directed toward him. The thrill of vulnerability swept through him, a wave both terrifying and exhilarating. The murmurs of the guests receded as he pressed on. "Today is a day of love and unity, but it's also a moment where I want to talk about a truth that has shaped me." Each word spilled out, sincere, stripped of embellishments. A few raised eyebrows and whispers began to circulate, but he pushed past the initial reactions, fueled by Jessica's unwavering support. "My father faced insurmountable challenges," he articulated, feeling each pulse of his heartbeat resonate through his voice. "I used to think that my life was defined by my achievements alone, that my father's hard work was all that mattered, but I've come to realize the price of silence and ignorance." After he divulged the struggles that had plagued his father's legacy, an eeriness settled among their friends and family. He noticed a few confused expressions. Others, hardened by idealism, struggled with the rawness of his revelation. Was acceptance still possible in the face of such honesty? As the ceremony continued, Benjamin wrestled with a revelation of his own. The outcome of his honesty might not bring acceptance, but rather scrutiny. That perilous feeling echoed within him, a void that could shift from freedom to judgment. Each vow spoken, every promise exchanged felt magnified, layered with doubt against the backdrop of unnatural expectations. They stood poised on the brink of commitment, but would they be stepping into a shared truth or a fabricated acceptance? The pressing question now demanded an answer. How far could he navigate this delicate balance between personal integrity and what others expected? As the officiant opened the floor for more personal vows, an unforeseen figure loomed in the corner of Benjamin's vision. A distant relative, his eyes narrowed in a calculating gaze, sparked a chilling doubt in his heart. Was this man privy to secrets yet untold? Was Benjamin's openness a mere catalyst for judgment rather than liberation? The atmosphere thickened with tension, leaving him questioning whether honesty might afford him the freedom he craved or imprison him further in a world driven by perceptions. As he prepared to speak again, a microcosm of apprehension flared anew. Now more than ever, he felt the weight of every choice hanging in the balance, demanding confrontation with both his past and the unpredictable future he had unwittingly unleashed. What had he just set in motion? A journey toward enlightenment? Or was he edging closer to a cliff where love and truth might tumble into the void? The weight of his words still hung in the air as Benjamin glanced toward his distant relative, who had maintained his chilling demeanor. Underneath the murmurings of the crowd, the tension coiled tightly around his heart. For a moment, he faltered, grappling with the aftermath of his confession. In that instance, he realized that vulnerability could be both a sword and a shield. Words had a way of inciting the deepest of fears while simultaneously opening avenues for healing. As the officiant repeated the call for personal vows, Benjamin's instinct urged him to retreat, but something deeper urged him to press forward. He felt Jessica's hand squeeze reassuringly, grounding him amid the rising tide of uncertainty. She embodied support, yet he couldn't help but question what they could lose in pursuit of authenticity. He turned again to the guests about them, skeptical eyes reflecting the revelations now lodged in the room's atmosphere. Ben's voice had resonated off fabric and flesh, but had it truly reached them? Was he ready to take the next step, or would the very act of love he sought fracture under the weight of judgment? Drawing in a breath, Benjamin fought against the storm brewing inside. Gathering his resolve, he stated, "I owe it to myself, to my family, and to Jessica to embrace the shadows of our pasts. We live in a time where fear often masquerades as strength, but I reject that notion." His voice grew steadier as he continued. "If my father's struggles were potentially unseen giants in my life narrative, let their weight be known. In doing this, I hope it frees not just me, but also those around me to embrace their own truths." The room remained silent for a heartbeat, and Benjamin braced himself against the possible backlash. Would they cast stones or gather as supporters? Each possible reaction enveloped him. He was both terrified and exhilarated. He felt his pulse quicken, the fluttering of his heart now filled with determination. This vow, he realized, wasn't just about the ties binding him to Jessica, but also about a commitment to his own evolution. Over the last few weeks, he had unearthed profound realizations about the fragility of human experience, and he wouldn't allow a moment of fear to dictate his journey. Then again, he caught the eye of that calculating relative. A chill ran down his spine as he recognized the implications behind that watchful gaze. Benjamin felt a knot in his stomach. Had he exposed not just himself, but opened a Pandora's box full of family secrets? Just how deep did the roots of silence run in his lineage? A sudden surge of clarity flickered in his mind. Perhaps the unspoken stories of his family were portions of himself that had yet to be acknowledged. He could either conceal the truths and continue entrapped in a shadow of his own making or delve deeper, facing what startled him the most. With newfound urgency, he tightened his hold on Jessica's hand. "This is more than just my journey," he vehemently declared as a swell of emotion caught him off guard. "It's ours. It's about understanding the tapestry we weave, filled with threads of imperfection, blended in hope and strength." Applause erupted from a few unexpected corners, a ripple of support that buoyed his spirits. But that fatherly gaze still hung like a haunting specter before him, closely observing every word. While some guests seemed to resonate with his message, others appeared perplexed, with a few visibly frowning as they processed his vulnerabilities. Yet amongst the applause and scrutiny loomed a stronger truth for Benjamin. Navigating this balance wasn't just a personal trial, he was reshaping the narrative for his future, laying down a new foundation not merely for their marriage, but for his entire legacy. Firm in his conviction, he stepped closer to the edge of authenticity, igniting the internal fire to confront every challenge that lay ahead. Before he could take another breath, the distant relative straightened, taking purposeful strides across the hall. The atmosphere shifted abruptly, the celebration teetering toward potential upheaval as this figure approached. Benjamin's heart raced anew. Was this the moment where everything would unravel? Did this relative hold the key to his family's dark past? As the man stood mere feet away, Benjamin felt as though the very world around him had shifted, threatening to crumble beneath the weight of unspoken truths. What revelations awaited him, shrouded in shadows yet to be illuminated? The moment of confrontation loomed large, laden with the promise of upheaval or, perhaps, redemption. The relative loomed closer, fixing Benjamin with an intense glare as if searching for fractures in his resolve. There was an expectation in the air, a demand for an explanation that felt almost primal, and Benjamin sensed he stood at a precipice, a chance to either propel his life forward or fall deeper into silence. "Bold words, Benjamin," the man said, his voice a mixture of disdain and curiosity, every syllable carefully honed like a weapon. "You think airing dirty laundry will save you? It only breeds chaos." The words were sharp, yet laced with an urgency that set Benjamin's nerves alight. Had he inadvertently stirred a long-dormant family discord? In that moment, every doubt he wrestled with swirled around him like a tempest. He felt himself wavering, but Jessica's grip on his hand seemed to inject a newfound energy into his veins, fueling courage nestled beneath fear. He was no longer alone in this. They had committed to this journey together, and suddenly, everything felt different. The stakes raised not just for himself, but for both of them. The coffin of their secrets lay open, and the burden of silence threatened to crush him. Benjamin's mind raced. Could he expose the truth hidden in the shadows without inviting further darkness? Was he ready to confront not just the fragmented pieces of his own identity, but to unearth what generations had sought to bury? Chaos is precisely what we need, he countered, the resoluteness in his tone surprising even himself. Your version of strength, dictated by silence, has only hurt our family. I choose the discomfort of honesty. Each statement felt like an anchor, grounding him amidst the tumultuous emotions swirling around the gathering. For the first time, he saw a flicker of vulnerability reflect on his relative's face, and it sparked something primal inside him. Benjamin's words resonated like a drum, a call to arms in a battle against entrenched narratives. Do you think pretending to be unscathed will shield us? He continued, each word bursting from him fueled by pent-up resolve. If we are bound by these secrets, we will never be free to grow, to heal. I will not carry the weight of fear any longer, not for myself, not for Jessica, not for anyone. He could feel the energy shifting in the room. Some guests leaned in, curiosity painting their faces. Others recoiled, processing a reality that challenged their complacency. The applause had faded, leaving behind an undercurrent of tension that vibrated through the air, a collective holding of breath in anticipation. The distant relative's expression morphed, the mask cracking just for an instant. Beneath it lay a flicker of uncertainty, a shadow of panic that made Benjamin question everything. Did he threaten the very foundation of familial bonds by speaking out? Or would this be the catalyst for healing long lost to silence? As the man opened his mouth to respond, the moment stretched like a wire-pulled taut. Benjamin sensed the heartbeat of the room, each second teetering on a knife's edge, balancing between potential liberation and disintegration. He pondered the depths of compromise, weighing the importance of both truth and the fragility of the flagging emotions surrounding them. Every eye in the room seemed focused on them, every heart pulsing with the unasked questions that simmered just beneath the surface. The relatives and friends, the loved ones who had gathered, were now unwitting witnesses to a confrontation that could reshape everything. Benjamin felt the adrenaline heightening his senses. He needed to decide now. Would silence fall again, or could he summon forth a voice formidable enough to survive the storm that encircled him? Tomorrow was a blank slate, waiting for their choices to etch stories of courage or capitulation on its canvas. The relative took a moment to compose himself. Benjamin sensed something shift within him. Was he gathering the strength to fight for his narrative? He could hear his heart pounding, paving way for a new chapter, ripe with promise or peril. What will it be? Benjamin pressed, determination lacing his voice. Will you continue to hide in the dark, or will you step into the light with the rest of us? His words hung in the air, each syllable pulsating with weight, demanding a response. The silence pulsed thickly around them, and in that moment, Benjamin sensed not only the friction of tension but the burgeoning possibility for transformation. As his relative opened his mouth to speak, Benjamin wondered, was he ready to face whatever truths lay ahead? What might crack open in the wake of this confrontation? The relative's lips parted, but the words that spilled forth were not the sharp retorts Benjamin had anticipated. Instead, a tremor of uncertainty crept into the man's voice, a crack in the facade of his composed authority. And what if that light exposes ugliness we are not prepared to face? He leaned forward, his posture both defensive and curious, reigniting the fire of conflict swirling between them. Benjamin felt the adrenaline coursing through him, every thump of his heart echoing the rising stakes of this moment. Would this discussion serve as a bridge toward revelation, or lay the foundation for further division? Peering into his relative's face, he suddenly saw his own family history reflected back at him, a lineage tangled in hidden truths, simmering tensions, and unacknowledged pain. How little did he truly know about the weight each family member bore. I refuse to believe our past defines us, Benjamin shot back instinctively. Each word became more fierce, fueled by the realization that his silence had only ever meant complicity in the family's unhappiness. We can confront our pasts and come out stronger. But first, we must face this together. His own courage surprised him, as did the glimmers of clarity that began to illuminate possibilities he had never considered. A flicker of recognition crossed his relative's face, a silence falling over them as the man processed Benjamin's words. Benjamin noticed other family members ruling out the gravity of his statements, faces shifting between discomfort and intrigue. Was he alone in thinking this confrontation could forge connections where once stood barriers? Strength is standing by our stories, Benjamin continued, his voice steady but urgent. What does it teach our children if we skirt around the shadows? They deserve to see resilience in vulnerability, to know they can grow from adversity. The words struck a chord, reverberating through the room as he watched uncertainty bloom into contemplation among the onlookers. Emboldened, he took another step forward, yearning to unravel their collective narrative entangled in silence. What happens if we continue to ignore the truth? Another generation shackled to fear and whispers? We owe it to ourselves, to our family, to break the cycle. Each declaration forged a pathway, a bridge hovering between the past and whatever awaited them on the other side. Benjamin wondered if he could lead others to that threshold of opportunity. Here he stood not just as a voice of his own truth, but as a beacon toward familial healing. Choose the path toward honesty, he urged, his voice rising with fervor. Together, we can tend to wounds, acknowledge mistakes, and build a family strengthened by shared understanding rather than shattered by unspoken fears. As he surveyed the room, he felt the oppressive weight of their collective history begin to lift. In its place emerged a sense of solidarity. Just as the relative began to respond, a vibrant energy shifted once more in the space. Benjamin's pulse quickened, sensing a turning point manifesting before him, a moment pregnant with potential. He involved not only his truth, but also the narrative of his family, all straddling the line between fear and opportunity. As conversations around him gradually shifted from uncertainty into cautious hope, Benjamin felt a deep yearning in his core. Was it possible that this moment could reframe what it meant to belong to this family? An aching need to explore their truths flooded his thoughts. His heart gnawed at the possibilities that lay beneath years of suppression. But whipping through that danger was a longing for clarity, a quest for connection that transcended fear. That he needed to know more, to understand not only the family's hidden layers, but how they interwove with his personal journey. What cracks lay in the walls built on silence? The realization sparked a new resolve within him. Here, at the precipice of revelation, he sensed a pull toward deeper exploration, a call to shed light on untold stories not just for himself, but for everyone holding their breath. Alongside him, will we rewrite our family's narrative together? He asked softly, aiming for a point of connection. With that, Benjamin sensed the air shift, a collective breath venturing forth, and just like that, the elusive nature of resolution bubbled to the surface. What truths awaited him as he plunged deeper into this familial labyrinth? Would his courage ignite the flames needed to forge a new legacy? The words hung delicately in the charged atmosphere, each family member processing the gravity of what had just been said. Benjamin felt the air thicken with possibility. Standing in front of an audience that bore witness to his unveiling, he realized this was more than just a personal catharsis, it was a potential paradigm shift for generations to come. His relative's brow furrowed, but it was more contemplative than defensive now. Rewrite our narrative? The man echoed uncertainly. A quiet ripple worked its way through the room, the initial shock beginning to unfurl into dialogue more profound than Benjamin had dared to hope for. Yes, Benjamin replied, his voice steady. Let us navigate these tangled webs together. Let us write something our children would want to be a part of. Something unbreakable. These words, bold and unwavering, felt foreign yet exhilarating as they rolled off his tongue. Yet, as resolve surged within him, so did doubt. Was he qualified to lead such a charge? What if the history chillingly retraced itself in layers too complex to unravel? But the seed of his burgeoning doubt was quickly overshadowed by the warmth of a growing conviction, a feeling ignited by the realization of his own strength. He glanced at his family members, the shadows of their apprehension mirrored in their eyes. "I can't do this alone," he admitted, vulnerability slipping in beside his courage. "We need each other to uncover our truths." A cousin shifted in her seat, thinly veiling her discomfort with a forced smile. Still, Benjamin detected a flicker of curiosity as she leaned in slightly closer. Was that interest he saw? Or perhaps a muted challenge? The room, echoing with collective echoes of hurt and misunderstanding, had the potential to catalyze an even deeper confrontation, one Benjamin secretly craved to face. "Let us start by sharing one truth," he proposed, the idea cascading through him like a wave. "Just one story that represents a thread in our family tapestry. Haven't we been more than clear about our secrets?" A stern voice shot from the back, a great-uncle Benjamin had only known in passing. The challenge was palpable, he could sense the drip of skepticism saturating the air around them. He steadied himself, determined. "Maybe we haven't," Benjamin shot back, feeling the heat of the confrontation invigorate him. "Perhaps our silence has only perpetuated the divisions that distance us. But our stories have power. It's in their retelling that we can connect and heal rather than drift apart." The challenge now turned into a crackling tension. Who would go first? How would the first brave soul stepping into the light react to being fully seen? Benjamin's thoughts bubbled with anticipation and trepidation. They needed to break down their defensive walls together, not in isolation, and surrender to that inevitable journey into light beneath the weight of their shared truth. That very thought propelled him further. What came next would give him clarity not just for himself, but for every member of the family ready to discover their truths. Every revelation would be a stepping stone, leading him closer to understanding their collective narrative. "Each story is a piece of the puzzle," he continued passionately. "And until we've placed all the pieces together, we won't see the full picture that binds us. Let us dismantle the fears that hold us hostage. Let us embrace who we are beneath the layers of silence." The murmurs began swirling, cast in both reluctance and intrigue. The air crackled with a sense of urgency as family members exchanged glances, some defensive, others poised to engage. And then, as if the very walls of silence were beginning to peel away, Benjamin found himself nervously stepping forward, his heart pounding. "I'll start." Before he could second-guess himself, he recalled the guilt tied to his childhood, the echoes of his parents' arguments floating around him like ghosts. How those memories still haunted him. They sculpted his earliest notions of love and conflict. He had carried those secrets with him for far too long. "I want to share the first piece," he volunteered, feeling the air shift. "But it's time to speak not just for myself, but for everyone else ensnared in this fragile web." As he opened his mouth to reveal a pain draped in his honest truth, he felt the first tremors of catharsis wash over him. Little did he know how this simple act of revelation could unwind secrets buried deep within others, setting off a chain reaction of healing. What response awaited him as he bared his soul? Would his words ignite the spark for the others to follow, or would the walls begin to close in once again? The moment hung, tense yet pregnant with potential, as Benjamin braced himself for the unknown. As Benjamin stood before his family, silence fell heavily, wrapping itself around him like thick fog. The weight of his past pressed against him, urging him to reveal truths that could falter under scrutiny. He inhaled deeply, steeling himself against the uncertainty of their reactions. Memories of childhood blurred into one another, their pain undeniable, yet he understood that each moment intertwined with those around him. He needed to articulate them, to stitch the fragmented pieces together. "I remember," he began, his voice wavered yet gained urgency, "the nights when my parents would argue." He felt their eyes shift, some squirming in their seats, others leaning in closer, curiosity flickering alongside discomfort. "I was just a kid, crouching behind the door, ears straining to hear the sharp words that cut through the stillness. I felt like a phantom in my own home, invisible." The confession spilled from him, raw and vulnerable. The silence danced, morphing the room into an arena of unexpected intimacy. "Those nights taught me what love could be, but they also showed me how a family could fray. I was terrified of becoming a man like my father, a man whose love was mixed with chaos. Benjamin glanced around the room, a desperation surfacing in his gaze. That fear turned into conviction for me. I swore that I would break this cycle. I want to be present for the people I love. But his words hung, unresolved. Doubt seeped back in, questioning whether his revelation would merely ignite more tension. Would his family sigh with indignation, recalling their own bruises? Or could they see his truth as an act of courage? And now, standing before you, I feel the same chasm, the echoes of our unspoken truths looming larger than before. The confession hung like an open wound. Would he retreat into the shadows of shame or embrace this moment of reckoning? How do we break free from this legacy? He challenged, his pulse escalating. How do we change the narrative? Despite feeling the heat of critical gazes, an inner flame ignited. This was no longer just about his journey, but theirs too. His great-uncle's scowl deepened, lines of skepticism etching deeper on his forehead. You're talking about rewriting history as if it's just a simple task. Today isn't just the past, Benjamin pushed back, channeling his apprehension into resolve. It's the beginning of the future, one we hold the power to shape. Every eye in the room remained trained on him, cloaked in a mix of incredulity and curiosity. If I can face my demons, can't we all? Let us acknowledge the hurt before it festers into resentment. A cousin broke the silence tentatively. What if revealing hurts us more? Benjamin swallowed hard, yet found himself emboldened by her honesty. But what if it heals us instead? He realized he was stepping into a territory fraught with danger and possibility. I refuse to let fear dictate our story any longer. His voice thundered, asserting not just doubt, but a burgeoning will that propelling itself into a commitment for change. A chorus of responses began surfacing. A cousin muttered something under her breath, while another uncle shifted his weight. Faces remained inscrutable, but some were at least animated, as if poked awake from a long stupor. Each reaction served as a thread woven into a broader narrative, fragile but potentially life-affirming. And in that moment, Benjamin's heart raced against an undertow of adrenaline. Could this be the threshold of a new beginning? For him, for them, or even the generations trailing behind. By admitting his fears, he had carved out a pathway for others to step forward, should they choose. Though nerves pounded like a drum in his chest, his voice rang clearer now, compelling. I'll share more, and I hope one of you will join me. Confession in itself is an act of bravery. We can rise from our ashes, together. The edges of this emotional battlefield blurred, filled with potential challengers. Who would emerge next, weaponized by honesty and vulnerability? The question lingered in the air as every heartbeat stretched the moment taut, a promise both daunting and thrilling loom ahead. The ground shifted underfoot, laying the foundation for a confrontation that was no longer just within himself. Their shared destiny hung in the balance, waiting for the next courageous soul to take a step forward. Benjamin's heart hammered in his chest as the silence thickened, dragging out the moment. He had stepped beyond his limits, unearthing conversations they had avoided for far too long. He knew he had taken a risk. The next voice that broke the echo of uncertainty would either solidify his defiance or unravel the strands he was desperately trying to weave. I don't get it, B. His older brother, Stephen, finally whispered, the irritation in his voice palpable. Why would you want to air dirty laundry? What good can come from poking around in old wounds? The challenge ignited a flicker of resentment in Benjamin. Why was vulnerability perceived as weakness? He longed to explain that the sharing of wounds wasn't to expose them, but to heal them. Because, Stephen, that dirt has been poisoning us from the inside. We need to talk about it, he said, battling the urge to retreat. Stephen folded his arms, the tension radiating from his body like a wall aiming to shield them all. The family dynamic played out like a familiar dance, each member moving to roles formed over decades, and Benjamin was determined to change the choreography. Do you think I want to feel this way to feel broken and worried? He took a breath, steadying his voice. I want to make connections that matter. I want to rebuild. I want to be different from Dad. Not just for myself, but for my future, for those who love me. Stop putting this burden on everyone else. Stephen barked, as though Benjamin's sincerity hadn't pierced through the anger-laden facade. You're not the only one who suffered. We all went through it. We survived, It's over. But surviving isn't enough, is it? His words cut deeper than he had intended. We're not thriving just because we're still standing. Have you really talked to anyone besides me about how this has shaped you? Stephen fell silent. The intensity in the air fizzled into contemplation. Benjamin recognized the battle within him, a painful grappling with the very words he failed to express. One moment of clarity suddenly flooded his mind. You're afraid, just like I am. We all are. Pretending only perpetuates the cycle. Around him, murmurs began to swell. He could see their defenses wavering, emotions crackling like static energy. Understanding flickered across his relatives' faces, the realization that they had been carrying this legacy of silence for far too long, that maybe, just maybe, confronting it could unlock a door to transformation. His voice softened, becoming an unexpected anchor. I'm asking us to be brave, to let those fears surface so we can finally breathe. I know this will be uncomfortable, but can't we challenge that discomfort together? A cousin leaned forward, her expression softening. What if we find a different way to tell those stories? Ones that let us emerge stronger. Benjamin's heart skipped a beat. Could this be a pivotal shift in the narrative? Their voices, once hesitant and fragmented, were slowly weaving together a tapestry of potential healing. Yes, he nearly shouted, brimming with renewed determination. What if we explore vulnerability as empowerment? We can rewrite our stories. Hope surged within him, but alongside it lingered the fear of truth. What other layers awaited them, hidden beneath years of silence? Would confronting those buried memories lead to a rebirth or destroy the fragile fabric of their family? As the conversation swelled with tentative optimism, Benjamin caught a glimpse of their shared power, but uncertainty still shadowed him. Let us take it step by step, he said, recognizing the need for careful navigation. If we can face our past one revelation at a time, we might just discover a way forward. With tentative agreement on the horizon, he felt the weight shift, igniting a spark where once there was only fragility. But how deep would they dare to go? Would they unearth buried emotions that could threaten the very foundation of their relationships? The question loomed, as did Benjamin's resolve to confront not only their shared darkness but his own. The next step would demand courage beyond what he had known, but the potential for growth shimmered enticingly. Who would be brave enough to take the plunge with him into deeper waters? As the tension in the grand hall simmered, Benjamin felt a wave of conviction wash over him. The walls that had felt suffocating mere moments ago began to thrum with the potential of reconciliation. He had embarked on a journey of vulnerability, and now it was time to see how far that could stretch. It was exhilarating and terrifying at once. The silence that filled the room began to shift. Whispers of agreement flowed alongside quiet skepticism, as if family members mentally prepared for the journey ahead. We can rewrite our narrative together, he reiterated, summoning the strength of his conviction. A distant relative, the initial skeptic, lowered his arms, appearing less defensive and more contemplative. You really believe that confronting the past will bring healing? He asked, skepticism lacing his voice but curiosity shining through. I do, Benjamin answered, moderated yet firm. Our pasts return to haunt us until we learn to grieve what was lost. It's about transforming pain into strength, taking back control of our story. Gradually, he saw heads nodding, some uncertain, others resolute. This evolution, sparked by honesty, began to forge new connections among family members, who could now sense the collective release of pent-up pain. Maybe it's time for a change, Benjamin's cousin piped up, pushing the envelope further. We've been too focused on surviving. I'm tired of playing the roles assigned to us by our history. Yes, Benjamin exclaimed, feeling a surge of energy ripple through him. If we can find the courage to share one truth, perhaps we will dismantle the silence that has held us captive for too long. The palpable fear was still evident, yet curiosity fueled a collective desire to shift their narrative. It was no longer about mere survival. It was about thriving in authenticity. Stepping forward, he encouraged others to join in. If we're going to break these cycles, let us allow our stories to interweave and empower one another. One by one, family members began to unearth their own narratives. A cousin shared the burden of feeling overlooked. A sister spoke candidly about battling anxiety, and a brother confessed to yearning for a parental connection he never had. Every revelation expanded their relationship, revealing see-through layers bound with distress and hope. Benjamin could sense that each story shared added brick upon brick to a burgeoning foundation of understanding and acceptance. It was cathartic, a sacred unveiling that dismantled layers of family pressure. Benjamin felt each tale resonating, echoing pain that had been buried for too long. With each voice that joined in connection, Benjamin experienced a true metamorphosis. The sense of isolation that had haunted him began to recede, replaced by solidarity family, not as shadows lurking, but as a collective embracing the beauty of imperfection. When the last story was shared, silence flooded the room once more. This time, it felt tangible, an embrace of shared vulnerability. He took a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the energy shift into a strong, renewed form of connection. As he looked around, he recognized more than just acceptance. He saw a call for action, a commitment not only to face the past, but to support each other as they reshaped their future. This was his pivotal moment, where personal growth crystallized into purpose. Emboldened by those preceding him, he voiced once again, "We will be stronger together. Let us promise to carry our truths forward and choose healing over silence." Louder applause erupted, this time not just a response to a gesture, but a chorus of rebirth, which echoed through the hall as they all began weaving a new narrative together, where pain transformed into vulnerability and unity. In that defining moment, Benjamin Carter had stepped into the light of self-acceptance and familial connection, confronting the legacy of silence. No longer would he hide behind the shimmering facade, nor fear exposure. His triumph lay not in wealth or status, but in unearthing the courage to embrace honesty. As he raised his cup to acknowledge this newfound path, he was filled with a profound contentment. The road ahead would be rife with challenges, yet he would walk it hand in hand with Jessica and his family. They faced the world now not just as individuals, but as a collective engaged in healing, a family informed by their stories, forged by their bravery. Embracing this transformation, Benjamin stood taller, aware of his evolved position. No longer a man defined by accolades, but one who would honor the truths carried through the generations. In doing so, he felt a remarkable wave of pride course through him, the deep satisfaction of achieving not just personal growth, but the foundation of a renewed legacy, built on connection, vulnerability, and love. Benjamin had conquered his internal conflicts, proving that real wealth lies in authenticity and that every family, regardless of the past, can evolve into something profound and extraordinary. Now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these incredible journeys of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Your engagement is crucial for us to keep bringing you powerful stories of personal overcoming.